but mushrooms are one of the few species that can actually recycle oil or plastic. I wonder, do you know much about that or any of the
Or
fascination around
even
that?
even nuclear waste. Isn't that what they found up in Chernobyl? That it was only fungi were able to come in and
there's a
actually
fungus that
recycle some of the
work, yeah.
waste. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not been. I don't think that's been introduced. I think that's a fungus that's found its food source. So essentially, I think what we're saying is, almost anything could be a substrate, a food source for fungi, and isn't that fortunate that there is, or also unfortunate if it happens to be a sweaty foot, like athlete's foot, because that's a fungus. That's an unwelcome one, or mold on your cheese in your fridge. But whether it's, like I said, sticks, twigs, feathers, sheep's horns, there is a specific fungus that will break down the keratin in sheep's horns, because what else can do that? So there is a fungus for all these things, and it's been found that yes, Paul Stamets, the mycologist we mentioned already, he did 3 piles. What's it called? We do something very specific scientifically. 3 test piles. Sorry?
Trials.
Yeah, I guess it was a trial, wasn't it? And he poured 1 set of wood chips, and he threw oil all over them, crude oil over all 3. This is roughly speaking as I remember it. And then he tried to clear up 1 set of wood chips that were contaminated with oil with typical solvents that might be used in real life to clear up spills. He did another one in another trial, maybe organically in some way, and maybe that was actually just left to see what would happen if nature could do it with solar cord with the wood chip. And the last set was his test one, and he inoculated it with oyster mushrooms, and he threw tarps over them and left them for maybe a month or so, pulled back, and sure enough, the oily one where the chemicals ran it worked to some extent, whereas on its own was just a big sludgy mess. But the oyster mushrooms had almost entirely, I think, cleaned up the oil. They turned the carbohydrates into edible sugars. So on top of that, they're actually edible, the mushrooms, even once they've absorbed this oil, which is a phenomenal thing. But then he left it. And the extra part of the story is that 3 months later, it went back to this pile because it had done its bit. And now it was actually a new micro habitat for all these various things, because birds were feeding on things were feeding on the mushrooms, insects and larvae. Birds were feeding on the larvae. Then you got poop and seeds and then plants, and it became this new ecosystem on a patch of wood chip that just had oyster mushrooms choosing to grow on. So not only had you cleaned the oil up, we also introduced this new kind of, like I say, this ecosystem, miniature ecosystem. So they have incredible potential. Quite remarkable stuff.
Jeez, you have an incredible knowledge. You really do.
I love mushrooms and fungi. Sorry, I love fungi.
I love mushrooms. I love fungi. Yeah, but this is it. It's all little bits of tidbits of knowledge, just enough to be able to answer that. I'm not a deep diver or anything. I'm just pound for pound. But I think my good bit is just walking out and pretty much being able to say what something is within reason, mainly speaking. That's kind of. I'm not so good at some of.
Well, Alex, you're wonderful. You've totally enlightened, enlivened, inspired me and my curiosity of fungi. Fungi really is probably the more appropriate answer.